The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us for today's second session. We have a real treat for you today. I'm going to give just 30 seconds or so to let people come in. We normally have a big flux of half the people arrive after the webinar's actually started. But while we're doing that, can I just ask that you raise your hand to let me know that you can hear me loud and clear, or just let me know. Okay, super. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to put down your hands now. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate that. Okay, now, before we launch into the presentation, as always, I'd like to recommend that you jump onto the Facebook page, facebook.com/WBECS. If you have any comments, questions, challenges, what learning that you've had from today's session, we would love to hear that. Please take the time to do that. It's a great way to connect with others, and please feel free to comment on each other's statuses and feedback as well. It's really great to create a community around the subject matter. Feel free to challenge what's said, and please feel free to put your own theories down there as well. That'd be great to hear from all of you. Now, today we have a very special guest, one of the very few people that we have invited to speak at all 3 years of our event. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege to have Dr. Marshall Goldsmith joining us once again. By far my favorite speaker, and I know it is for many of you too. And many of you come along just for Marshall's sessions. I know that. Marshall is recently been recognized as the #1 leadership thinker in the world at the highly respected biannual Thinkers 50 ceremony, which is sponsored by the Harvard Business Review. He's a million-selling author or editor of 32 books, including the New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestsellers Mojo and What Got You Here Won't Get You There, which I've read both of those. A Wall Street Journal #1 best business book and winner of the Harold Longman Award for Business Book of the Year. His books have been translated in 28 languages and become bestsellers in 10 countries. Some of his professional acknowledgements include the Institute for Management Studies Lifetime Achievement Award, and that's one of only 2 ever awarded. The American Management Association, 50 great thinkers and leaders who have influenced the field of management over the past 80 years, which is a huge honor. Business Week's one of 50 great leaders in America. Wall Street Journal, top 10 executive educators, Forbes 5 most respected executive coaches, and it goes on and on and on. He really is a huge success in his work, and I know many of you have taken his knowledge and applied it in your own coaching practices and with your clients, and you're keen to learn some more now, so I won't cut out any more of today's session. Without further ado, I would like to hand over to my very good friend, Dr. Marshall Goldsmith. Over to you, Marshall.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Very, very happy to be here. Honored to be with you again. I'll briefly introduce myself for those that I haven't met, and then we'll get started. My name is Marshall. I'm from Kentucky. Went to school in Indiana. Got a PhD at UCLA at the Anderson School. I was a college professor and dean when I was very young, and then for 36 years I do 3 things. One is I give talks or teach classes, which is what I love to do the most, speaking and teaching. 2 is I'm most famous for is coaching executives, and my coaching clients tend to be CEOs or could be CEOs of multi-billion-dollar companies. And today I just talked to one of my good coaching clients, Alan Mulally, who's now the CEO of Ford. I've worked with the CEO of huge companies like Pfizer and Glaxo, and then president of the World Bank, and all kinds of interesting people. And what I love about coaching is I learn so much. I actually feel like I learn much more from my clients than they learn from me. So that's what I love about coaching. Then the third thing I do is writing and editing of books and articles. And please visit my website. If you go to www.marshallgoldsmith.com, my website, I give everything away. I'm a Buddhist. My basic attitude is we're all going to be equally dead here, so let's do a little good. If any of my material does any good at all for you, you may copy, share, download, duplicate, use in your coaching, use in church, use in charity, use in business, use in nonprofit. Use any of my material any way you wish to use it. If you need any approvals, just ask. I'll give them to you. But if you go to my website, it's very clear. It says I give everything away. Nice thing about my intellectual property is I have a foolproof technique to avoid anyone stealing my property. You cannot steal what people give you. So if you give stuff away, you don't have to worry about being stolen. So I always try to give away everything I do. And hopefully if you can use any of my material to make the world a little better, that makes me feel good. The one thing you could do, make me happy, is if you ever use my material and helps anybody in any way, just send me a little note. That always makes me feel so good. My email address, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com. I love getting emails. Now, if you give me an email, I can't promise I'll get back to you immediately, but I will get back to you eventually. So I always get back to people. Sometimes it just takes me a little bit of time to do it. What are we talking about today? Effectively influencing decision makers. I'm going to share something with you today that I find just works amazingly well with my clients and in my own life. And if we understand this, or the people we coach understand this, number one, you're better at influencing people up, down, and sideways in an organization. And number two, which to me as a Buddhist is probably even more important, you're happier because you learn to change what you can change, and you also learn to make peace with what you cannot change, which as you get older in life, I find this just gets more and more and more important because I don't have that much time left. So it's very, very important to change what I can and then make peace with what I can't change. Now, let's see. Ben, I have good. What are our goals? Our goals. Number one, increase your skills at influencing up, down, and across. And then number two, very simple, increase your ability to make peace with what you can't change. Two very simple goals. Now, first, a great discipline. Before getting involved in any activity, ask yourself, take a deep breath.
Marshall,
yes.
Can I just
yes.
Have you unpaused your screen?
Unpaused my screen.
Just press show my screen at the top. I just suddenly realized that you might not. There we go.
Now can you see it?
Yep, just caught you just on the first slide, thank goodness.
Very good. Now, are you on the slide that says a great discipline?
That's what I can see right now.
Perfect. Well, before getting involved in any activity or discussion, ask yourself a question. Am I willing to make the investment required to make a positive difference on this topic? And if the answer is no, I'm not willing to do that, take a deep breath and let it go. As we've grown older, as I've grown older, one of the things I've realized is we have limited amount of time and energy in life. We can't change everything. Really focus on what can I change. And Peter Drucker taught me a great lesson. He said, our mission in life is to make a positive difference, not to prove how smart we are, to prove how right we are. In my book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, I was asked by the Harvard Business Review, what is the number one problem of all the effective people that I coach? And I said, winning too much. What does that mean? If it's important, we want to win, meaningful, we want to win, and trivial, we want to win, and not worth it, we still want to win. We get fixated on winning, fixated on proving we're right, as opposed to saying, am I going to make a positive difference on this topic? And if the answer is no, just take a deep breath and let it go. Let it go. Now, next. Now, Ben, I'm having trouble advancing the slide. I'm not sure why.
Okay, if you click onto the actual screen itself.
I've got it now. Now it's advancing. Okay, as Peter Drucker said, our mission should be make a positive difference, not to prove how smart or right that we are. Now, I have asked thousands of people, in fact, probably over 100,000 people around the world this question. What % of all communication time is wasted on A, people talking about how smart, special, wonderful they are, or listening to someone do this, plus B, people talking about how stupid, inept, or bad someone else is, or listening to someone do this? Well, the average answer in the entire world is around 65%. And what's amazing is it doesn't really matter what country I'm in. I've been to 86 different countries. The answer is remarkably consistent around the world. It's almost never above 75 or below 55. It always clusters right around 65%. Well, then I ask people, how many of you, given pressures of work and home and new technology that follows you everywhere and emails and voicemails and global competition, how many of you feel about as busy today as you've ever felt? Everybody says yes. Well, I said, okay, I'm now going to give you a productivity enhancement tool for yourself and for your teams. What is the tool? Reduce that number. How much do we learn talking about how smart, special, wonderful we are? Nothing. And how much do we learn listening to other people do this? Nothing. And how much time is wasted on that? Way too much. Well, just reduce that number. Now, what doesn't work in life? Vicarious living. TVs, movies, video, YouTube, sports talk, celebrity, games, video games, gossiping, passing judgment on people we're not going to influence. So much of our lives, my life, my client's life, is wasted on vicarious living. And I've done some research with my daughter Kelly, who's a professor of marketing at the Kellogg School, and we studied satisfaction with life at work and home, and what we found out, vicarious living doesn't work. If you want to have a great life, live your own life. When you're coaching people, really encourage them to minimize the time they spent living someone else's life and focus on living their own life. In my condominium at New York, one of my neighbors was Lindsay Lohan. How many billions of hours were wasted with people reading about Lindsay Lohan getting stoned or Lindsay Lohan taking a walk or whatever? You know, Lindsay Lohan's not losing sleep over you. Why waste your life on that stuff? So very important to get people to focus on how can I make a positive difference in this world, not spending my time on judging everyone else and their issues and their concerns and their problems. Now, effectively influencing decision makers. On to what I've learned from Peter Drucker. The next point I'm going to make sounds amazingly simple, yet very few of us deeply get this point. The great learning point on this one from Peter Drucker is every decision that impacts our life will be made by the person who has the power to make that decision, not the right person or the smartest person or the best person. Make peace with that fact. Now, my guess is that many of you have gone through life saying this to yourself before. I'm amazed at someone at that level, followed by is crazy, weird, stupid, does dumb things, or acts like an idiot. I'm amazed at someone at that level. Well, have you ever read a history book? In the history of the world, and most people at those exalted levels of status, money, and power, they've been women or men. Men, younger or older. Older. Is there anything in the history of the world that would lead you to believe when you take old men and you give them huge amounts of money, status, and power, they begin to act phenomenally sane and rational? Well, I never really read that book myself. Yet we talk about life as if life is supposed to be populated by these incredibly sane, logical people who make decisions. Now, I went to engineering school and I have a degree in math, so that makes me one of the worst offenders of what I'm going to talk about next. That is called looking for logic where none exists and being shocked because we can't find it. One of the greatest challenges of the people I coach is they get lost in looking for logic. And they say, well, that's not logical. That's not right. That's not fair. Really? Life isn't logical, right, or fair. The kid comes home from school. Mommy, Daddy, the teacher gave me a C. I deserved an A. Well, you know, kid, the teacher had the power to make the decision. You didn't influence the teacher, and you get what you get. This is the way life works. Now, second great point from Peter Drucker. When presenting your ideas to decision makers, realize that it is your responsibility to sell, not their responsibility to buy. Peter Drucker taught me this. Every decision is made by the decision maker. Our mission in life is not to prove we're smart or right. Our mission in life is to make a positive difference in this world. If you need to influence that decision maker to make a positive difference in this world, one word to describe the decision maker, customer. One word to describe you, salesperson. It's not their job to buy, it's our job to sell. Very important to teach this when you're coaching. One of my good coaching clients was actually a great salesperson. He then was an executive vice president of marketing in a huge pharmaceutical company. His direct reports loved him, his peers hated him, and his boss hated him. I talked to him, and his boss said, try to help this guy get better. He was doing a terrible job of influencing people when he didn't have direct client authority. I talked to him, I'll say his name is Joe. I said, Joe, you have great sales skills. Have you been using these sales skills with your peers? No. How about with the CEO? No. And I said, why not? He said, well, you know, I shouldn't have to do that. Well, I said, you know, in life there's a lot of stuff we wish we shouldn't have to do, but we do. I asked him, I said, if that CEO was your customer, how would he feel about you? You know what he said? He'd throw me out. And I said, is that smart or stupid? Well, it's like a light bulb went off. He looked at me and he said, that's stupid. I said, you're right. This is incredibly stupid. Well, boom. He started using the same great sales skills that he was using with his direct reports and with the external customers, with the peers, and with the CEO. What happened in short order? Boom. He gets promoted. He becomes president of the organization, in line to be the next CEO, and has much better relationships with his peers. Why? He realized they don't have to agree with him. He doesn't have line power over his CEO, and he doesn't have line power over his peers. He can't tell them what to do and how to do it. And the fact he thinks he's smarter than them doesn't really matter a whole lot. Because even if he is smarter, They don't have to buy what he's trying to sell. Number 3, when we do try to influence decision makers, focus on contribution to the larger good, not just the needs of the decision maker, and the needs of the decision maker, not just the achievement of our objectives. One of the biggest mistakes people make when they try to influence their bosses is we say things like this: well, you have to do this because I need it. That's like a salesperson going to a customer saying, you have to buy this because I need to make commission because I want to buy my kid a nice Christmas present. Your needs are not the problem of your customer. When you sell, don't sell to your needs. Sell to the needs of the decision maker and point out why this is a good thing for them to do. And you also have to realize the decision maker, especially if the decision maker is a big executive, a CEO, they have everybody coming to them asking them for resources. Everybody wants more time. And their life is like triage. They've got to determine, why should I give this to you and not give it to someone else? And the fact that you say you need it is kind of irrelevant because everybody says they need it. Number 4, very important point. Strive to win the big battles. And don't waste energy and psychological capital on trivia. It is amazing how much this happens. We get lost in arguments over trivia like who's a better football player, or just tiny points around the office, or being right over nonsense or nothing. Well, what happens is, psychologically, if I'm your boss, and you get into some ridiculous bullheaded argument over a baseball team, in my mind, that has the same impact as you getting into an argument over something important, and probably even more so, because I'm thinking this person is just an idiot. Well, very important to focus on, is this a battle worth fighting? Back to that first question. Am I willing to make the investment required to make a positive difference on this topic? And a lot of times, is it worth it? One of my good coaching clients retired about 6 years ago, J.P. Garnier, CEO of GlaxoSmithKline. I said, what'd you learn about leadership? He said, I learned a hard lesson. My suggestions become orders. I said, what'd you learn from me as your coach? He said, take a breath, breathe, and ask myself, is it worth it before I proceed? Because once I did that, half the time I concluded, am I right? Maybe. Is it worth it? No. Well, very important to win the big battles. Take that deep breath and ask ourselves, is it worth it before we continue? Next, present a realistic cost-benefit analysis of ideas. Don't just sell benefits. One of the challenges of influencing decision makers is our tendency is to say, you need to do this, and here's why this is good. Well, the person you're trying to convince is not an idiot. There is always a cost. If nothing else, an opportunity cost. The money, the resources, the energy I'm giving you is not being given to someone else. To do an effective job of influencing decision makers, you need to present a realistic cost-benefit analysis and say, here are the realistic costs of what I'm asking you. And here's why I believe the benefits of this idea exceed these costs in a substantial way. If you do not present the cost to the decision maker will present the cost to you. And when that happens, the decision maker's interpretation will probably be more negative than your own interpretation. So my suggestion, prepare your cost-benefit analysis before you present the idea. Don't just sell benefits. And by the way, as a coach, I use all of this in my coaching. Even CEOs need to influence people when they don't have direct line authority. CEOs need to influence boards. This happens all the time in my coaching. I'm trying to help a CEO influencing a board member. Well, what I teach them is be very clear. What are the costs? What are the benefits? What did this person see? Treat this person like a customer. And what I find is that almost always produces a more positive benefit. Next, challenge up on issues involving ethics or integrity. Never remain silent on ethics violations. I think number 6 is a very, very important point to teach throughout the organization at all levels. It is never acceptable to use what I call the Nuremberg defense. Hitler made me do it, to justify inappropriate behavior. Every leader needs to learn to challenge up on every ethics or integrity violation. And one other suggestion I give companies on the performance appraisal, never make integrity a performance appraisal issue. Never put integrity on your performance appraisal form. Integrity should be a condition of employment, not a performance appraisal issue. If you put integrity as a performance appraisal issue, it makes it sound like, well, minor violations of integrity or some violations of integrity, okay, if you do something else well, you can still get a mediocre rating. Wrong. Fire ethics problems. The next thing is a coach, never coach an ethics problem. If someone comes to you and they want you to coach someone as an ethics problem, don't do it. Ethics problems should not be coached. Ethics problems should be fired. Very clear. How many ethics problems does it take to ruin the image of a corporation? One. I always tell my clients, never coach an ethics problem. Dismiss or fire an ethics problem. Number 7. Very important. Realize that powerful people are just as human as you are, and don't say, I'm amazed that someone at this level, followed by his weird, stupid, dumb, or idiotic. Very, very simple learning point. When you pass down that order, always treat people with respect. Always treat people with respect. And people that are powerful deserve respect just as much as people that are not powerful. Now, that may seem to be an obvious case, but I've worked with 3 private equity CEOs, and they all had the same problem. Sometimes people get this job title, CEO, and it goes straight to their head. They think, I'm the CEO, I'm the boss now. Well, I don't know if you know private equity, but private equity, there's an owner. And these people were rude to the owners. They were rude, they were disrespectful, and their attitude was, you can't tell me what to do. Well, in all 3 cases, I had to sit down with the CEO and say, let me help you here. Your job title is CEO. That's a nice title. Very good. CEO, important job title. Their job title is owner. Owner is better. It's their money. It's their money. Yes, they can tell you what to do because it's their money. It's not your money. It's their money. They're the customer, not you. Well, in 2 of the 3 cases, I succeeded. And as you know, my coaching process, I don't get paid if I don't get better. I got paid. In 1 case, I didn't get paid. I failed. The guy just never got it. I just went back to the owners and I said, what % of the company do you own? The guy said 100%. I said, I'm sorry. I give. This guy just would never get over this they can't tell me what to do attitude, and they finally had to fire him. And they weren't asking him to do anything immoral, illegal, or unethical. They were just asking him to behave in a way that was consistent with the larger strategy of the private equity firm, not just to be focused on his own isolated issues. Next. Treat decision makers in the same courtesy you would treat customers, as I said. Don't be disrespectful. Don't say bad things about them. And, you know, general guideline, if we stab our boss in the back in front of our direct reports, what do we teach our direct reports to do when they disagree with us? We immediately teach our direct reports to stab us in the back. Very bad role modeling. If we bum rap our parents in front of our children, what do we teach our children to do? Bum rap parents. Very bad idea. Number 9, support the final decisions of the team. Don't say, they made me tell you, to direct reports. If you're coaching leaders, and the leaders go back through the chain of command and they say, they made me tell you, what message does that send to the employee? You're not a leader. You're a messenger boy or messenger girl. You're not a leader. They made me tell you. It makes the leader seem like a victim or a hopeless person. A couple of guidelines on this. In the old IBM, they had a model called challenge up, support down, which I love, which that means boss gives you a decision, you don't think it's a good decision, challenge that decision. On the other hand, when the final decision is made, assuming it's not immoral, illegal, or unethical, you salute the flag and go make it work. In McKinsey, the great consulting firm, they have another phrase for this. It's called, we fight on the inside and support on the outside. What does that mean? In the team, when the decision is being made, everyone should express their opinion. They should argue. They should talk about how they differ. When the final decision is made in the team, you shake hands, you salute the flag, and you go out and make it work. Very important when you coach top executives teams to teach them these principles. Because if you're not careful, people will leave that team meeting saying the team made me tell you this, or HR made me tell you, or finance made me tell you. And inadvertently, they're just stabbing their direct reports in the back. And by the way, the message that goes down through the company is these people don't have their act together. Again, next, make a positive difference. Don't always try to win or be right. Very important in life, am I making a positive difference? Is it worth it? Not, am I right? And is this a battle worth fighting? And many battles are not worth fighting. And then finally, one thing I teach is feet forward, focus on the future, let go of the past. We don't really gain a lot by pointing out to other people how they've screwed up in the past and what's wrong with them. If we just focus on a positive way of looking at the future and give people ideas on how we can make the future better and not focus on why the past was bad, invariably we're better off. So let me summarize. In influencing decision makers, when you don't have the line authority, treat them like customers and kind of use these 11 steps. What this will do is give you a great way to maximize your probability on success. Now, when we're influencing people and we don't have line authority, and very important as a coach to say this, I can't guarantee that if you do everything right, you're going to win. Why? You don't have the power to make the decision. The decision maker does. You can still do everything right and still not get your way. On the other hand, if you do what I just taught you, you will dramatically improve the idea and improve the odds that you're going to win. And you're going to improve the idea that you're going to do a better job of influencing people on important and meaningful issues. Now, let me switch gears. This is one thing I use in coaching. Dealing with disagreement when you are the decision maker. Now, this is the same Peter Drucker logic, only applied in a different direction. When you are the decision maker, I teach people, realize that you are the person who has the power to make the decision. Leadership is not a popularity contest. You can't always agree with people. You can respectfully disagree without having to prove the other person is wrong. You see, our instinctive reaction when I'm the boss and you disagree with me is, if it's an important issue, my instinctive reaction is, let me explain to you why you're confused. As opposed to me saying one of two things. One, let's say I'm the boss and you disagree with me. I could say, you know, Jim, in this case, I want to do X and you want to do Y. You're a smart person. You've laid out the reason for Y. I've thought about it. Let's go with Y in this case. Let's do it your way. That can be fine. Sometimes, though, I don't really believe I should say that. I'm the boss. We do disagree, and I don't want to go with Y. I want to go with X, and it's my call. I can say, you know, Jim, in this case, you've explained the reasons for Y, and you're a very smart man. You've presented some good logic. In this case, I want to do X for the reasons that I've said, and we disagree. In this case, I still want you to do X. This is the decision I've made. I understand that you disagree. I want you to execute on X, and I want you to give everything you've got to make X work. Just give me your best support to help me with X. The person says, well, Marshall, I think you're wrong. You know what I can say? You know, we're both guessing here. I might be wrong. And you're a smart man, and I'm certainly not going to sit there and say I'm always right and you're always wrong, because that would be inappropriate. In this case, I've thought about it. You've given me your argument. You haven't convinced me. Here's what I want to do. Here's why I want to do it. Really appreciate your support. Let's go make this work. And by the way, we talk about decisions, especially people, engineers, math backgrounds, as if somehow it's all right or wrong. The reality is, in business, we're just guessing anyway. Nobody knows a, quote, right or wrong answer. We're all kind of guessing what the answer is. Nobody knows what the future is going to be anyway. And sometimes my guess is different than yours. In some cases, maybe I'm the boss and my guess is wrong. It's still the best thing I thought I should do, and I have to believe in myself and stick with my judgment on this issue. So, in summary, we talked about two things: decision-making and power, how to influence when you do have the power, how to influence when you don't have the power. So, I've enjoyed this very much. Do we have any questions? Ben?
Thank you very much for that, Marshall. Super session, as always, packed full of huge number of things to go look by. Okay, if you have any questions, please put them into the chat box on the right-hand side, and we will ask them as we go. Okay, lots of feedback. Great session. Is a website page listing these? Marshall, is there somewhere where people can find these 11 points listed?
If anybody sends me an email, marshall@marshallgoldsmith.com, I will be more than happy to send you the whole article about this.
Okay, super. We have a question here. From Mary, Mary Beth, when do you fire a client, Marshall?
Well, in my case, I fire a lot of clients. I get about 10 times as many requests for clients as I have time. I only coach people that care. I actually don't try to convince people or motivate people to do anything anymore. And I'm not saying others shouldn't. I'm just saying I don't. They have to care. They have to do the work. They have to follow up. They have to try. And they have to give it a sincere effort. And their issue has to be behavioral. If those conditions don't exist, I just don't work with people. So it's not that I fire them. It's 9 out of 10 people that request me to be their coach I do not work with, not because there's anything wrong with them necessarily. It's just that there's only so many hours in a day and I can only coach so many people. If I do ever coach someone that has, doesn't do the work, doesn't seem to care, doesn't seem to try, then I would just respectfully say, this doesn't seem to be working for both of us. So let's just move on. And that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them or wrong with me. There's a lot of things you can do in life other than have me be your coach. So that's fine. So what I just tell them is, this just doesn't seem to be working, and that's okay.
Okay, thanks for that, Marshall. Do you coach a client on ethical issues or just let them go?
Never. No, if someone has an ethics issue, my vote is fire them, not coach them. So I just have a simple guideline: make ethics not a performance appraisal issue, a condition of employment issue, have clear ethical guidelines and rules, and if anybody does violate the ethical guidelines and rules, fire them as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Don't hire a coach.
If selling coaching, can you listen and unfold the cost benefit from the decision maker, or should it come with the facts, or should it come in with the facts?
Well, I think I understand the question. There are many types of coaching. In my coaching, I only do helping successful leaders achieve positive long-term change in behavior. So in presenting the benefit for what I do, I never sell this to my clients. They sell it to me. So what I say is, I don't get paid if my client doesn't get better. Better is not judged by me or my client, it's judged by everyone around my client. The company, that means, say, the direct report and the future direct report, pick the key stakeholders. They get 360 feedback. I interview these people. They tell me that improvement in this behavior is worth this much money. And then I say, fine, I will work with the person for a year and a half. If they get better, pay me. If they don't get better, it's all free. And by the way, I've never been cheated. Most of my clients kind of respect this because I only get paid for results. And if somebody ever looked at me and said, prove to me this is worthwhile, you know what I'd say? In your case, it probably is not worthwhile.
Okay, super. Thank you very much for that, Marshall. When challenging up and the boss is still not listening, what would you do in that situation?
Sometimes you can't sell. Sometimes the customer doesn't buy. This is a very good question. You know what you do? You can sell what you can sell, and you cannot sell everything. If you cannot sell it, you take a deep breath and let it go. If you can't stand to stay with the company, you start looking for another job. But you don't just beat your head against a wall trying to sell what you can't sell and being frustrated and disappointed because you can't sell it and being angry with people who don't buy it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. What techniques can be used to help clients let go of being right?
Well, I try to really do role plays with them and focus on the is it worth it question. The first question is this going to make a big difference or a small difference? The second question is, what are your odds on selling it? And what is the cost involved in selling it? So let's say that you need to get resources. All right, maybe your peers are going to be kind of upset because you're getting resources that they aren't. That is a cost. So I try to have them do a thorough analysis of what are the real costs here, what are the potential benefits, and is it worth it? And then when they put together their sales case and try to influence people, to really focus on selling what they can. I do role plays with them, help them practice. And then if they can sell it, they can sell it. And if they can't sell it, what I coach on is, okay, let it go. Move on. Set it behind you. What can you sell? A good salesperson, by the way, is often rejected. What do they learn to do, though? Take a deep breath, let it go, and move on.
Okay, maybe one or two more questions. Interesting question.
Okay.
When does the line cross from coaching to psychology?
In my case, I don't know what about the word psychology, because that can be defined in many ways. What I do is definitely not therapy. I spend almost no time analyzing why people have problems. My mission is to help people get better and to achieve positive long-term change in behavior. And I get paid for results. So what I tell people is, I've heard every excuse in the world. Let me tell you about my father. Well, you're 55 years old. I don't really care about hearing about your father. You're an adult. Let's grow up here. Or it's my culture's fault, or my father's fault, or my boss's fault, or the company's fault. People either do or don't want to change. If they want to change, I'm happy to work with them. If they're more focused on making excuses than they are changing, I really don't work with them. And I don't focus a lot on the past. My whole focus is not on why you have an issue or concern. My whole focus is help you get better. I don't get paid for analysis. I get paid for results. And we often waste so much time in analysis, we actually give people excuses and diminish the odds we will achieve positive long-term change in behavior.
Thank you for that, Marshall. Okay, there's a couple of people have asked questions around 360. With this, would you run a specific 360 or one that you have come up with? Do you do it after the coaching too? Would you run one for, would it be a conversation?
I always do a very comprehensive 360 to start with, and then I do a mini survey afterwards. If you'd ever like to see a copy of what the mini survey looks like or the summary feedback looks like, send me an email. I'll send you a copy of it. And again, I'll send you an article. In fact, the next session we're going to do is going to go into great detail about my whole coaching process and how that works. So the next session is going to focus a little more on that. This session was focused more on this specific issue of influencing decision makers.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Marshall. Okay. One last question, if that's all right with you, Marshall.
Sure.
What if you have accepted a coaching agreement and an ethical issues surfaces in the course of coaching? Do you then walk away?
Well, that's never happened to me, number one. Number two, though, if I did find out that the person did commit an ethical violation, by the way, in my own mind, an ethical violation too, because I've got to live with myself, what I would say to that person is, really, I don't feel that this is appropriate for me to work with you. And I wouldn't feel a need to say anything else to anybody else. The person could say anything they wanted to about me. This is just my decision. And by the way, I'm not putting my values on other people. Other people can do whatever they want. Speaking for me, though, I don't go down that bad road. And the reality is I've never had this happen. So it's an interesting theory, but I've been in this business 30-something years. It's never happened. So I think if you can be careful about who you work with on the front end, it's statistically very unlikely that's going to happen on the back end. Although it's possible. If it does happen, I'd leave.
And on that note, we're going to leave. So I would like to say a massive...
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you to you, Marshall, man. Always just filled with so much activity, so much useful, tangible knowledge that people can actually use in their coaching practices, which is so brilliant of you. Thank you so much for that. Look forward to Marshall's session as part of the full summit. It's going to be fantastic. It's coaching. Is it coaching for behavioral change?
Yes, it is. It'll answer some of the other questions in a lot more details. It'll be about how my coaching process works, how I measure change, what clients. And by the way, I'll also talk about when my coaching process should not be used, because I make no pretense that what I do solves all problems. So I'll talk about when it should not be used, when it should be used. I'm going to share research we've done with 86,000 people about behavioral change too. And I'll also share some of the new research I'm doing with my daughter about employee engagement, which is great fun.
Very cool indeed. Very cool. So look forward to that, guys. Okay, I'm going to call this session to an end and say, if you wouldn't mind, please jumping onto Facebook and give us your feedback there so that everyone can see. It's great for Marshall. Marshall puts a lot of his time into this, and there's a lot of people that do not know yet about Marshall's awesomeness. So by posting it on the Facebook wall, you'll be able to share it, and your friends will also be able to see that as well. So if you've got a lot of value out today, pass it forward by posting on the wall just your feedback. That would be super. It's facebook.com/WBECS. Okay, well, take care, everyone. And once again, thank you very much, Marshall, for our super session. I'll be in touch very shortly.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.